All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Element of the Week. And for this week's Element of the Week, we are going to be doing a demonstration we like to call hydrogen bubbles. Have a look at the materials which we've gathered here. You'll notice here that we have a large jar here filled with hydrochloric acid. This jar here actually contains concentrated hydrochloric acid, which is a very dangerous chemical substance. We're going to dilute that hydrochloric acid to make it a little bit less dangerous to deal with. And the other chemical we're going to be using here today is actually a metal, which is a familiar metal, something you actually need in your diet, which is a metal called zinc. So we're going to go ahead and get started here by combining together the hydrochloric acid and the zinc. Now, as it turns out, when hydrochloric acid and zinc react together, a chemical reaction takes place in which the zinc displaces hydrogen from the hydrochloric acid in what's called a single replacement reaction. Now, in that single replacement reaction, you'll notice that we end up forming lots and lots and lots of bubbles, and those bubbles, as it turns out, are hydrogen gas. The second product of this chemical reaction is zinc chloride. So if you have a look at the chemical equation we're writing down here, that reaction is zinc, a metal, which is a solid, reacts to hydrochloric acid in what we refer to as an aqueous solution to produce zinc chloride, which is dissolved in the solution, and our second product there again was hydrogen gas. Now, we're going to make use of the fact that this reaction generates hydrogen gas in kind of a fun and clever way here. Some of you might have seen a problem with hydrogen in the past, and that is that hydrogen gas is highly flammable. And if you think back to some of your history lessons, some of you might have come across a particularly unpleasant event involving hydrogen, which was referred to as the Hindenburg-Zeppelin disaster. In that Hindenburg-Zeppelin disaster, a very large blimp filled up with hydrogen gas ended up igniting and exploding in fairly spectacular fashion. We're going to do that reaction on a much, much smaller and safer scale here. So what we've done is we're going to go ahead and react the zinc metal that we saw in the previous part of the video here to hydrochloric acid, producing hydrogen gas. And that hydrogen gas which we're producing is going to end up getting bubbled through a solution of soapy water. So right here you see that we're adding some Dawn dish soap to our water, and we're going to go ahead and mix up our Dawn dish soap there, getting the water nice and sudsy. Once we have got all our water nice and sudsy, we're then going to undergo the reaction that we showed you earlier, but this time we're going to do the reaction inside of a one-arm flask. Now, the gas is going to get trapped inside that one-arm flask, and as the pressure builds up, it's actually going to push the gas out the little nozzle that we have at the end here. So right now, there's hydrogen gas coming out the end of that nozzle. We're going to stick the nozzle underneath the surface of the water, and in doing so, we're going to bubble that hydrogen gas into our soapy water. And those bubbles that are now going to form at the top of our water now are filled up, you guessed it, with hydrogen gas. Once those bubbles collect enough of them at the surface, we're then going to very, very carefully scoop those bubbles up in our hand, and you'll watch here as our demonstrator scoops up the hydrogen bubbles and brings them close to the candle flame down below, and we'll see the results of our experiment. So just a couple more bubbles, almost good to go here. We'll get a nice big scoop. Get our hand wet first of all so we don't burn off any of the hairs in the back of our hand. Hold it up to the flame and you see a nice little explosion right there. Let's do that one more time now up close. So again, getting a nice scoop of the hydrogen bubbles, hold them up to our flame, and you see a nice little tiny explosion. Now, the reaction that's taking place there is what we refer to as a combustion reaction. A combustion reaction is a reaction which occurs when something is burned in the presence of elemental oxygen. There's oxygen in our atmosphere, and the fuel that we're burning here is hydrogen fuel. Some of you might have heard of hydrogen's use as a fuel in what we refer to as like a fuel cell vehicle. So the hydrogen gas, when it burns in elemental oxygen, is kind of a cool chemical reaction that takes place because the product of this combustion reaction, as it turns out, is a very, very familiar one. The only thing produced from the combustion of hydrogen gas is water. And that's one of the big reasons why we think hydrogen might be a great fuel for the future, because that hydrogen, when combusted, produces water, and water, as you all know, will collect in our upper atmosphere in clouds and rain down into our ocean, which means we don't end up increasing the amount of greenhouse gases that are produced by other combustion reactions, in particular by combustion reactions involving fossil fuels. So there you have it. That is the combustion of hydrogen gas. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.